President Benson, really thank you very much for that, Hop. Thank you very much for what you said as well. A couple of things. First of all, Hop, when they asked me for my sizes, I told them the truth, okay? I didn't make believe I was 25 pounds lighter than what I actually am and 2 sizes lighter. And I want to point out a difference between earlier, you know, I congratulated Jason, Alina, and Akala for their induction. But I also want to point out a little bit of a difference between track and golf and football. Now you had Jason and Akala and Alina get up, and if you time them from the beginning of their talk to the end of their talk, for the 3 of them together, it took 7.5 minutes. Coach Bennett took 42 minutes just by himself. And then Hop added another 17 minutes to that. And I haven't even gotten to warm up yet. So that it's not a difference in talent, just like we tend to talk a little bit more as far as football goes. I think for me though, you know, it was hard to get in the room tonight just because of all the people that we stopped and we said hello to, and my family, and for this induction tonight to be able to happen in front of my family, but also in front of so many of my friends and loved ones and my players and other coaches, moves me, man, humbles me, really humbles me. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't have a couple shout outs here. It was 2009 when I stepped down as CEO and became chairman of TD Ameritrade. I didn't think about going back to football, and I got a call from a bunch of alumni at Yale telling me that there was a good chance their job might open up. Would it be interesting? I said, guys, I've not coached for 24 years. And they said, yeah, we know that, but we really spent a lot of time looking at the skill sets the head coach is supposed to have. We think you have those. In fact, we think you have competitive advantage other guys don't have. So there's only one problem. What's that? In 135 years of college football, none of this has never, ever happened before. So think about it, and I did. And I thought at a time in my life where I could probably do anything I wanted, I chose to go back to football because I thought it gave me greater satisfaction than perhaps anything else I ever did. And having already coached for 16 years, maybe a piece of that was a little bit of unfinished business. But then I was only going to come back if I could get a Division I head football job. It didn't make sense for me to kind of do anything else. And I got an opportunity to coach in Nebraska for 2 years and then with the Omaha Nighthawks and the UFL. And when it came to college athletic directors or college presidents, nobody wanted to give me a chance. I was non-traditional. I hadn't coached for 20-something years. A lot of times they didn't even realize that by then I had already coached for 19 years of my lifetime, although it wasn't a traditional 19 years. And no one was really willing to take the risk. And there was a number of features and there was a number of articles. And I got a call one day from President DeCenzo. And he talked about my becoming the head football coach here. And so I will always consider David a friend, and I would always be eternally grateful for him, because if it weren't for the opportunity he gave me, with no other president in the country would, or no other athletic director, frankly, at that time would have, he did. And if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be standing here tonight. So that means the world to me. I wanted to say that. And then the other guy I want to give a shout out to is Jamie. And you know, when Jamie first joined our staff, you know, to me, I really believe that was a blessing for me. I thought it was a blessing for our players and for our staff, and a blessing for Coastal Carolina football. But a year or two later, he was commuting then, and a year or two later, Somaz, his wife, and their 3 children moved in, and I think they moving into the community, frankly, became a blessing to the entire community. And when you think about what he and their staff and the players have done to help us be legitimately competitive at some of the highest levels, at the FPS level, is something really, really incredible, that all Coastal Carolina, frankly, the entire community is very, very proud of. But you know what, Jamie and so much, nobody prouder than I am. So that's that. When I first arrived here, you know, there was a lot of controversy with Dave and I coming in, and Dave leaving and me coming in, and a lot of people didn't necessarily do their homework on me, and everybody pretty much hated me. So, you know, every place that I went, though, you know, I said, why don't you just give us a shot, and, you know, we're going to try to do things, you know, the way we believe we're supposed to be done. And if it works out, great. If it's not my fault, then it's my fault. And if it does, then great. Then we're building on a legacy of our other coach. And But when I say people didn't like me, people really didn't like me. You know, I'd walk into a restaurant, they wouldn't give me a seat, for example. Like I would try to order something in a fast food place, and they wouldn't give me the food, or they would spit in it before they gave it to me. Then I'd walk by a corner, and I'd look around, people would be giving me the finger, and it kind of like it didn't feel great. But after a while, that philosophy that Hop talked about, the band philosophy that we really built the program on, we were the only program in the nation that had no rules. We had one standard, and that was band. And after a while, the guys really started to believe in that. And when we recruited them, we talked to the guys on the team, said, if you can't play, you know what, that's our fault. We did a poor job evaluating you as an athlete, but if you don't live up to band, you're not going to be part of the program. That first year, there were 14 guys on the team that we let go. 11 of them would have been starters for us. But as the season went on, our guys believed more and more into it. They pulled together more and more, and we started to win, and we started to have tremendous success over the span of the next several years. So by the end of that season, the reality was I was respected in the community, and I was embraced by the community, and that was something that meant a lot to me. That has only grown over time. Now, I can say, well, you know, that's what you think, right? That's what you guess. That's what you feel. Well, yeah, that's definitely what I feel, but I think I also have scientific evidence that that's the case. And the proof of that is my first 8 months here on campus, I was pulled over 4 times for speeding, which I tend to do. I got 4 speeding tickets. 2 of them were 42 in a 35-mile-an-hour zone. Okay? Just reinforced the fact that they don't like me. In the last 9 years, I've been pulled over 11 times. 0 tickets. 0 tickets. You know, our program, and Jamie said, our program, we want it to be different. You know, we know how important winning is. Of course, we know how important that is. We're coaches. If we don't win, we're going to get fired. We know that. We understand that. But we want to be different. We want to be something special. It wasn't just about, we feel incredibly proud of our records. We feel incredibly proud of all the different things we achieved and accomplished. But the thing that mattered most to us was the impact that we had on our guys and what was ultimately going to happen to our guys, not just with football, but above and beyond football. And so we began with something, we began with our mission. And a lot of mission statements is we want to win the championship, we want to do this, we want to do that. That wasn't our mission. Our mission was to put a team on the field that all Coastal Carolina is going to be proud of. That's what we recruited with. That's what we talked about on a regular basis. Now, again, we know we need to win. We know we got to win. But when we say Coastal Carolina's got to be proud of it, we're talking about our entire school, our student body, our faculty, our alumni, the entire community of Horry County. They're going to be proud of what we do. And what does that mean? That means every snap we take, we're going to give it 100%. I dare you to go back and look at our film over the last decade and take a look at how many snaps, over the thousand snaps of all the guys over the span of the season, how many guys actually took the play off? How many guys actually never gave it his best? I bet you can't find 5 plays in all that time. And again, it's something we're very, very proud of. The other thing we did, as I said earlier, we had no rules. We had a standard. Stand on your own 2 feet, take responsibility for yourself, treat others with dignity and respect, and live with the consequences of your actions. In my very, very first head high school job at Archmere Academy, Claremont, Delaware, that was in our playbook. That was 1971. And today, that was then the principle upon which we built our entire program. And we had 120 guys on the team, another 25 analysts, coaches, interns, etc. We call it BAM, be a man. But it's not a sexist thing. It's an acronym for leadership. A real man, a real woman, a real leader stands on their own 2 feet, accepts responsibility for themselves, treats others with dignity and respect, and lives with the consequences of their actions. I would like to see our country, that is as divided as I've ever seen it, pulled together with that type of standard. With regard... So it's above and beyond football, and we made a big deal about academics. And so one of the things that I'm incredibly proud of, that frankly a lot of people don't really talk about, the president of Coastal Carolina got off the stage to give me a glass of water. You are a badass. So one of the things that a lot of people are not aware of, there was about a 5 or 6 year period, we had 8 or 9 guys playing in the NFL. So we made a big deal. If you're good enough to get to the NFL, we could get to the NFL. Half of those guys had played for David, and the other half had played for us. But while that was going on, we had 48 of our players were doing graduate work while they were playing football. Now let me put that in perspective. Notre Dame couldn't say that. Vanderbilt couldn't say that. Wake Forest couldn't say that. Virginia couldn't say that. Michigan couldn't. Harvard couldn't say that. Coastal Carolina was able to say that. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of. We should be. And the third thing that we did, and Jamie's doing it now, we gave up 30 minutes of practice a week. Now I'm going to repeat that. We gave up 30 minutes of practice a week. Nobody does that. Nobody gives up practice. We gave up 30 minutes of practice a week to talk about stuff that had nothing to do with football. We call it Life After Football, LAF. Happened once a week for 30 minutes. We did that throughout the entire season, through spring ball, and then a handful of times throughout the span of the year. And we literally talked about stuff that had nothing to do with football. A lot to do with band, but had nothing to do with football. And we did this every week. So one of the things we talked about, I think the greatest threat that exists in the world today is terrorism. And we talked about how terrorism began. We talked about the theory behind ISIS. We talked about what it stood for. By the way, our players at the time knew what ISIS stood for. I bet you 99% of student athletes, forget student athletes, students in this country don't know what ISIS stood for. Our players did back then. And we talked about, and when we talked about, how do they get funded? How do they market themselves? How do they grow? There's a religious ideology behind what they do. So yeah, we believe we live in the greatest country in the world, and we do. But there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that will not hesitate to give up their life with unlimited funding to take our lives away because they feel we're evil. That's a pretty powerful incentive. So how do we protect ourselves? Well, we protect ourselves through the military. So there are guys the same age as our guys that are putting their lives on the line in some godforsaken desert in the Middle East. Why? So we can play college football. That's one of the reasons, but the real reason is so we can live in freedom. And with those freedom, though, comes responsibility. We go right back to band. Well, if that's the case, then we can only pray that our political and military leaders have the guts, really have the courage and the guts to do what they believe is the right thing for our national defense. Even if they're not going to get promoted, even if they're not going to get elected. Do the right thing for our country, right thing in terms of national defense. Well, what role do we play in that? Well, we really don't want to play any role. What we do, bam, take responsibility for it. We live in a democracy. And in democracy, we have the right and the privilege to be able to vote. In 2016, out of 140 years of college football, the only program in 140 years of college football whose entire team voted for the President of the United States in 2016 was Coastal Carolina. Now, that was something I was very, very proud of. And we got some national attention because of that, and I was very proud of our guys. And a lot of our guys were very proud of that. So we had gotten some press on that, and the following few days, I was interviewed in Mike and Mike in the Morning, TV, radio show out of New York City. And they talked about the band philosophy, and they talked about what you did with regard to the voting. And they thought that was terrific, it was great, et cetera. Well, a couple of days later, they interviewed Nick Saban. And they said, you may know Joe Moglia of Coastal Carolina, he's got this band philosophy. The other day, all of his guys voted. What did you do on election day? Election day? What do you mean election day? We're Alabama, University of Alabama. We didn't think about elections. We got a game to get ready for. We got to play a game. I said, okay. So that got around a little bit. And a lot of our guys had heard that. And one of our team meetings the next day, I was in the front of the room, and one of the guys raised his hand. He said, Coach, what's going on with you and Coach Saban? And I realized they had heard about this, and they said, you know what? How proud I was of them. But the reality is, I think the press is, Coach Saban, Nick Saban is probably somebody he's a great coach, but he's feared. He is feared as well. The press and media is afraid of him. So they weren't getting there wasn't enough publicity from a negative perspective with regard to this. So I said, this is bothering me. I said, in fact, this is pissing me off. You know what? I said, I want us to play Alabama. And at the time, they were undefeated, beating everybody by 45 points or so. And we were good, but we weren't quite that good. And so I tell the guys, look, you know what? I want us to play Alabama. I'm going to call Saban. I'm going to tell him I want to play him. And our guys start clapping. They're going, yeah, they're feeling hot stuff. They're kind of moving around. Then I tell them, you know what? That's not going to be good enough. I'm going to say it on national television. I'm going to say it in the papers. I'm going to say in the papers that we want to play Alabama. A little quieter now. The guys are sort of moving around their seats a little bit. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to predict we're going to beat them by 40 points. That's dead silence. Nobody's moving in the entire game. Nobody's moving. And then I said, at the end of the game, when I meet him in the middle of the field, I'm going to kick the living shit out of that guy. I said, I'm just kidding. Let's go to practice. We went to practice. But that wasn't over with as far as I was concerned. And I was still annoyed that the media hadn't done anything about this yet. And this was a bad thing to say. So on the radio show, we'll have radio shows. So on the radio show that day, I had a friend from Omaha call in and say, here we have, call from Omaha. Say, Coach, what do you think about what Coach Saban said the other day on Mike and Mike in the morning? And I go, well, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I don't know what he said. So the caller in says, well, he said, what do you mean? We're getting ready for a football game. We didn't have time to think about the election day. He goes, what do you think about that? And I said, well, first of all, I have tremendous respect for Coach Saban. I can't believe he said that. I can't believe there's a possibility he said that. The guy wouldn't say that. I have tremendous respect for him. I read everything about him. He's a great coach, the Hall of Fame guy. I read everything about him. I said, but had he said that, it would have been disgraceful to the University of Alabama football program. It would have been disgraceful to the University of Alabama. This is on radio. It would have been disgraceful to the state of Alabama. And as far as Saban's concerned, it's a national embarrassment. But there's not a question Saban would have said that. So let's move on from that. You know, with that, I'm going to close now. And for tonight to happen again in front of my loved ones and my family, means something very, very special to me. But when Melissa and Jill were talking about all our friends and loved ones that were coming tonight, it hit me over the last 24 hours or so, and then today I really looked at the list. We've got about 200 people in this room from about 20 different states, and they literally cover, there's a representative here from every place I have ever been in my entire professional or coaching career, including my grammar school, Our Lady Queen of Martyrs in the Dyckman Street section of New York City. There are representatives or people or players or coaches or friends here from Fordham Prep, from Marchman Academy, from Pencrest, from Lafayette College, from Dartmouth College, from the University of Nebraska, from the Omaha Nighthawks, and many from Coastal Carolina. There are people and friends here from Merrill Lynch. There are people here from TD Ameritrade. And the only spot that wasn't covered over the span of my entire lifetime was my father's fruit store, Cabrini Fruit, on 181st Street. So for me to have all of you here tonight, and all of you represent Coastal and what's best about our university and what's best about our society, this is truly, from the bottom of my heart, one of the greatest honors I've ever received, and I thank you all. I thank you all.